Welcome to Business 360. I'm Archana Solanki, and let's get started with the headlines this evening. Stock markets gain for the second day running. Sensex adds over 400 points. Nifty gains over 100 points. Mid-cap index hits a record high. SEBI bars Zee promoters Subhash Chandra and Puneet Goenka from holding any key position in listed entities. This poses another hurdle for the Zee-Sony merger, as Puneet Goenka was supposed to be at the helm of the combined entity. Zee promoters moved the Securities Appellate Tribunal against the order. MRF creates history, becomes the first Indian stock to hit the 1 lakh rupee mark. It has taken the stock over 2 years to traverse the journey from 90,000 to 1 lakh rupees.
We see this defining relationship as a unique connection between the world's oldest and largest democracies.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says there could not be a more critical time for Indian and American businesses to come together, calls on both nations to promote market access, advance transparency, and strengthen respective democracies to unleash full potential. Former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey claims the Indian government had threatened to shut down the social messaging platform during the farmers' protest. Government hits back. Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar calls Dorsey's claim an outright lie. The centre dismisses reports claiming a breach of personal data registered on the Health Ministry's CoWIN portal. The government says the Computer Emergency Response Team reviewed the alleged leak and found that the CoWIN portal was not directly breached. The Weather Department warns that Cyclone Biparjoy, which is set to make landfall this Thursday, has extensive damage potential, says it is likely to impact Gujarat's Dwarka, Kutch and Jamnagar. The Home Minister Amit Shah, meanwhile, chairs a meeting with disaster management ministers of states. The global CEO of Amway, Milind Pant, says the company is doubling down on investments in product innovation. It expects India to become a $25 trillion economy in over 2 decades. Also adds that you need patience and optimism. When asked about regulatory challenges in India, that's an exclusive. Former U.S. President Donald Trump will appear in court to face federal charges for retaining national security material and obstruction of justice. Trump is expected to plead not guilty and has called the case a political witch hunt. All right, let's start with the day's trading action. Market gain for the second straight day, with the Nifty and Sensex ending over 0.5% in the green. The mid-cap index hit a record high after it soared over 1%. However, financials continue to underperform the blue chips. Nifty Bank ended 0.25% higher. Meanwhile, India's market capitalization rose further and is at a 7-month high of $3.52 trillion. Prashant Nair is here with the details. Prashant, a good day for the bulls, is it?
Well, the handover was great, right? So you had US markets which looked pretty good. Nasdaq was up and up. You had the consumer price inflation numbers here, which kind of signaled to the market that maybe the RBI in August, when it meets, will turn a bit more dovish. And the market started strong. It built on gains, even from the opening level. I mean, the Nifty ending about 70, 80 points higher. So you made money by getting in mostly at any point during the day. Mid-cap index at a new all-time high. Small caps, of course, now 11th week of continuous gains. So I think, it's a space we've been highlighting, and gains have been amazing. I'll get to stocks there in just a bit, but in the Nifty, Tata Consumer, Cipla, Asian Paints and Titan were the top gainers. Now we get to the real deal, mid-caps and small caps. And again, the breadth of the move is just amazing. Electra, Tata Communication, Tanla Solutions, Trent, HBL Power. Some of these stocks, HBL, for example, is up 30% last week and is having a great week. And we're only in the second day of this new one. Bombay Burma, Loda, JBM Auto, again, has done very well this month. Nazara Tech, Oracle Financial Services, Devyani is creeping back to its previous highs. Kirloskar Ferrous, Ahluwalia Contractors, KDDL, and so on and so forth. Long list of volume-led gainers, and we've been highlighting this every day. Losses coming through in a few names. Indigo was down. KPIT cracked in the last 40 minutes of trade. HCC, Data Patterns, and Nuclear Software has been a big winner. Saw some pullback, some profit taking. Will the Nifty break out of this congestion zone? Will the Bank Nifty do the same? I think for that to happen, we need to get by the next 2 days, and those are important from a global standpoint. We get US CPI data today, which will decide what the Fed does tomorrow night. And of course, we react to all of it on Thursday morning. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Prashant, for that. Let's also talk about another big headline. Tire manufacturing giant MRF has created a new milestone for the Indian stock market. The company's stock has become the first to cross the 1 lakh rupee mark. It has taken the stock more than a decade to climb up from 10,000 rupees a share to 1 lakh rupees. Hormaz Fatakia joins us with more details. Hormaz, quite a journey for MRF.
Well, it is a momentous day if you are an MRF shareholder, as the tire manufacturer became the first Indian company to cross the mark of 1 lakh rupees a share. Now, the company had first entered the 5-digit club in February 2012 when it closed above the mark of 10,000 rupees. Since then, the stock has gained 900%. Now, while MRF at 1 lakh rupees would make for a good headline, when you compare that to its peers, MRF turns out to be an underperformer. Now, had you invested in shares like JK Tyre, Balkrishna Industries or CEAT, investors would have fetched a lot more money when you compare returns from February of 2012. Now, it may not come as a surprise to many, but most of the analysts who track MRF have a sell recommendation on the stock, and all of them are citing expensive valuations behind their bearish stance. Now, the two of them who are not bearish have a hold rating and an accumulate rating. In fact, Elara Capital in its note has said that MRF's diversified businesses make it less vulnerable to a slowdown in any particular segment. Elara has a price target of 1,01,525 rupees on MRF. So despite the surge that MRF has seen over the last decade, it is still an underperformer if you compare that to its peers. Nonetheless, if you still wish to buy an MRF share, be prepared to shell out 1 lakh rupees for the same.
All right, thank you, Hormaz, for that. Now to a CNBC exclusive. GQG Partners remains bullish on the Adani Group. The company chairman, Rajiv Jain, says he will buy more stake in the conglomerate over time. The fund even increased their original investment in Adani Group by 10%.
We don't have any target or anything. It depends on how the fundamentals evolve. But yes, I've already said that we are interested in increasing our stake over time. We do feel, in fact, the numbers subsequent to a purchase, as the earnings numbers come through, they've been fantastic across the board. It hasn't gotten as much press, but the numbers have been from ports to enterprises across the board, massive beats. So yeah, we quite like how well they're positioned on a longer term basis. So yeah, we are likely to add, but it'll be, we don't have specific targets, dollar targets, because it depends on so many things. No, we are not at 10%. Actually, more. We are between 3 to under 5% across all of them individually. So it's actually, yeah, it was the increase was 10% from the original amount. But yeah, we are sort of low to mid single digits, but under 5%, because obviously there'll be disclosure once you cross 5. But we have not crossed 5 for any individual company.
Moving on, SEBI has barred Zee promoters Subhash Chandra and Puneet Goenka from holding any key position in listed entities. Now, this poses another hurdle for the Zee-Sony merger, as Puneet Goenka was supposed to be at the helm of the combined entity. Zee promoters have moved the Securities Tribunal against the order. Surbhi Sutaria joins us with the details. Surbhi, what has SEBI said and what does it mean for the company?
There is a fresh setback for the Zee-Sony merger, as SEBI bars Subhash Chandra and Puneet Goenka from holding any key managerial positions in any of the listed companies. Now, this is a major setback, as Puneet Goenka is slated to be the CEO of the merged company. Now, what has happened has SEBI has found that SL promoters have siphoned off funds from Zee for their own benefits. And now, Subhash Chandra and Puneet Goenka are allowed 21 days to file their reply to this SEBI order. SEBI has highlighted multiple instances of poor corporate governance issues. They traced multiple transactions showing misuse of resources to pay off promoter dues. The first one being where Subhash Chandra provided a letter of comfort to Yes Bank for a 200 crore rupee loan to SL Group Mobility. This letter assured a fixed deposit of 200 crore from a group entity including Zee. On the basis of this, Yes Bank adjusted the 200 crore rupee FD of Zee against any such dues. But a large part of these funds originated from Zee itself or any other listed companies. Now let's look at a flowchart of one such circular transaction. Now Zee gave close to 8 crore rupees to Living Entertainment, which then moved to Khoobsurat Infra, which then moved to Spirit Infra Power. Similarly, another 9 crores moved from Zee Entertainment to SL Business Excellence to Spirit Infra Power. Now, a total of 17 crores has moved from Spirit Infra Power to Pan India Infra to SL Green Mobility back to Zee Entertainment. It can be seen that the Zee money received from the SL Group company had originated from the bank accounts of Zee itself. In another instance, SEBI flagged fund siphoning in SL Group's Shirpur Gold Refinery, where Shirpur Gold Refinery Promoter Group Company diverted assets worth 400 crore rupees from 2019 to 2021. Based on this, exchanges BSE and NSE were asked to review their consent to the Zee-Sony merger. Now, what's next for Zee? The company is reviewing the order, and CNBC-TV18 learns from sources that Subhash Chandra and Puneet Goenka have moved to SAT against the SEBI order, and the plea will be heard on June 15th. And finally, NCLT hearing is on June 16th, which will take note of all these latest developments.
All right, thank you, Surbhi, for that. Meanwhile, domestic passenger vehicles registered highest ever sales in the month of May. This is according to the data released by the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers. PV sales jumped up more than 3 lakh units, clocking in a 13% jump year-on-year. In the two-wheeler category, sales shot up to more than 14 lakh units, registering a 17% jump year-on-year. Now, SIAM President Vinod Agarwal said that he anticipates the growth trajectory to continue in prevalent economic environment. Aircraft lessor Air Castle has filed a fresh plea against SpiceJet. The lessor has claimed that the airline has failed to pay dues and is seeking insolvency proceedings. This is the second time this lessor has moved NCLT against SpiceJet in an attempt to seek the initiation of insolvency proceedings. The court will hear the matter on 17th of July. The US-India Business Council's India Idea Summit has kicked off in Washington. Addressing the summit, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said there could not be a more critical time for Indian and American businesses to come together. He also called upon both countries to advance transparency and promote market access to strengthen the democracies. US International Development Finance Corporation CEO Nathan Scott said that the US has an exposure of $3.2 billion in Indian businesses and more deals are on the table. The summit comes ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the US next week.
We know that India and the United States are big, complicated countries. We certainly have work to do to advance transparency, to promote market access, to strengthen our democracies, to unleash the full potential of our people. But the trajectory of this partnership is unmistakable, and it is filled with promise. At the heart of the strategic relationship between our countries are economic ties. And under the leadership of President Biden and Prime Minister Modi, and private sector leaders in this room tonight and beyond, it is growing stronger by the day. Last year, as you all know, trade between our nations reached a record $191 billion, making the United States the largest trading partner for India. American companies have now invested at least $54 billion in India, from manufacturing to telecommunications. In the United States, Indian companies have invested over $40 billion in IT and pharmaceuticals and more, supporting 425,000 jobs from California to Georgia.
If you ask me what I would bet on the most, what is that one force multiplier for this relationship and for the global well-being? Indeed, it is tech. It is the master key to unlock the real potential in the relationship. There is a lot of synergy and complementarity between us in the tech space.
It's clear, in India being the biggest part of our portfolio, that there's just a huge range of investment opportunities, a huge range of business opportunities. I strongly encourage U.S. companies to look at them, to continue to pursue them. We'd be delighted to help out, whether that's lending or equity investment, political risk insurance, technical assistance grants. We're there to help support not just U.S. businesses, but also obviously Indian businesses, as we've been discussing.
And speaking of the India Idea Summit, Amway CEO said he is very bullish on India. In a conversation with Sri Bhan, he said that India is in a geostrategic sweet spot. He added that Amway is doubling down on its investment for production and innovation in India.
As I look ahead for India specifically, look at the next 20, 30 years, I'm very bullish. It's mathematics that India will be a $25 trillion economy by 2045, 2050, which is the size of the US economy today. And it will get there because there are many tailwinds in India's favor. It's got a youthful, economy, youthful society. They're driven, they're entrepreneurial, they're health focused. It's investing in digital infrastructure and physical infrastructure. And then to your point, there's a geostrategic sweet spot.
All right, it's time for a short break, but coming up next, the Indian government has hit back at former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey over claims that the Indian government had threatened to shut down the social messaging platform during the farmers' protest. More on that when we return. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The centre has hit back at Twitter founder and former CEO Jack Dorsey's claims that the Indian government had threatened to shut down the social media network during an interview to a YouTube channel, Breaking Points. Now, Dorsey claimed that India had many requests around the farmers' protests, around particular journalists who were critical of the government. Dorsey went on to say, and I quote, "And it manifested in ways such as, we'll shut Twitter down in India," end quote. Now, Minister of State Rajiv Chandrasekhar slammed Dorsey's claim as an outright lie.
India is a country that had many requests of us around the farmers' protest, around particular journalists that were critical of the government, and it manifested in ways such as, we will shut Twitter down in India, which is a very large market for us. We will raid the homes of your employees, which they did. We will shut down your offices if you don't follow suit. And this is India, a democratic country.
Jack Dorsey was the CEO of Twitter during a very, very dubious period in Twitter's history. What he has said is an outright lie, and I've said that publicly, and I'm reiterating it again. Twitter is a company that believed that it was not necessary for it to comply with Indian law. It believed that it did not have to comply with Indian law and made up its rules as it went along.
Moving on, the centre has dismissed reports claiming a breach of personal data registered on the Health Ministry's CoWIN portal. Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar said that the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team has reviewed the alleged breach and found that the CoWIN portal was not directly breached. Chandrasekhar also said that the data that the automated account on Telegram was allegedly sharing used previously breached database. An extremely severe cyclonic storm Biparjoy is expected to make landfall in Gujarat's Kutch district on Thursday. The Indian Met Department has warned that the cyclone has extensive damage potential and the wind speed will likely be around 150 km per hour when it makes landfall. The Weather Department has also warned that Kutch, Dwarka and Jamnagar may receive very heavy rainfall. Authorities have already started evacuating people from villages within a 10-kilometer radius from the coasts of Kutch and Saurashtra. Over 8,000 people have been evacuated so far. Meanwhile, Home Minister Amit Shah chaired a meeting with the disaster management ministers of states and union territories. He said they are fully prepared for the cyclone. A massive fire broke out near Lonavala on the Pune-Mumbai highway after an oil tanker overturned and spilled oil. At least 4 people have died and several others sustained injuries in the accident. Authorities have halted the traffic movement on one side of the highway to prevent any further accidents. The Enforcement Directorate conducted searches at multiple premises linked to Tamil Nadu's Electricity Minister V. Senthil Balaji. ED personnel paid a visit to Balaji's official residence in Chennai, his home in Karur, and office in the State Secretariat at Fort St. George. Just weeks ago, the minister was raided by income tax officials over his alleged role in the Cash for Jobs scam when he was an AIDMK minister between 2011 and 2015. It's been a year since the government announced the Kisan Drone Yatra and 9 months since it followed that up with a 120 crore rupee production-linked incentive scheme for drone manufacturing. Now, in these 9 months, 23 provisional beneficiaries have been identified. 12 drone manufacturers and 11 drone component manufacturers. But even for non-beneficiary companies, orders have been pouring in. CNBC-TV18's Jude Sanath reports that with orders pouring in, drone makers are intent on expanding capacity and have big investments lined up.
At Garuda Aerospace in Chennai, a new batch of drones is ready to be shipped out. The startup clocked 50 crore rupees in revenues from drone sales and services in FY23 and is now prepping for an order of 8,000 drones worth 323 crore rupees. Incidentally, these are only the drones received under the Kisan Drone Yatra, where farmers use drones to not only transport their produce to market quickly, but for crop assessment, digitization of land records, and spraying of insecticides and nutrients. With orders pouring in, Garuda raised $22 million in Series A funding in February, the largest mop-up by an Indian drone startup. These shipments, Garuda says, will catapult revenues into uncharted airspace.
We are looking at a very progressive and conservative target of about 450 to 500 crores next year, because we already have 320 crores of drone sales waiting to be realized.
Experts estimate that the farm sector alone could place drone orders worth 8,800 crore rupees in FY24. Orders from defense, big energy, shipping and steel companies could account for orders worth an additional 16,000 crore rupees. This has drone companies and their investors scrambling for more orders, more capacity, more efficiencies and more investments. The Indian drone market attracted investments of close to $50 million in FY23, and this in itself was 3 times the total investment that came in over the previous year. And it isn't just startups, but the more established companies as well that are gunning for a place in this pecking order. The opportunities, they say, lie across the board, from operating drones for agricultural and manufacturing applications to making them for the armed forces. Companies expect the market for both drone procurement and drones as a service to multiply many times over, and they want to ride that slipstream. In Hyderabad, security and surveillance firm mCloud has forayed into drone manufacturing. After executing drone service orders for energy and manufacturing majors, it is now targeting 2,500 crore rupees in FY24 revenues from drone sales. In this, it is banking on the 70% stake it acquired in Bengaluru-based drone maker Scandron in March. Scandron makes 200 drones a month. But mCloud says this isn't enough. It is looking for land parcels in Hyderabad or Bengaluru to expand operations.
The manufacturing capacity has to be drastically changed to scale. Right now, we should be able to manufacture about 200 drones within a month's time. We need at least 10 acres of area because of the flying testing that we have to have, and different, if we have to scale to deliver like thousands of drones within a month.
Meanwhile, Mumbai-based IdeaForge is readying for a bumper IPO as it looks to deliver high-altitude drones to the armed forces. And in Chennai, IIT-incubated E-Plane is scaling up its production after receiving design organization approval from aviation regulator DGCA. There are over 100 drone manufacturers in India and even more drone component manufacturers. Every week, more such companies are taking off as they race for a piece of the market that promises clear skies and fair flying weather. In Chennai, this is Jude Sanath.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business 360. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news continues on the other side.